All right. And I think we're live. Hi, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to another partner story here on LinkedIn Live. As you know, at Empathy, we like to tell stories of people, data ethics, privacy, because we want to gather those ideas and spark conversation about the future of tech services in this rapidly changing era. Our partner story today, I'm very excited about this one. It will focus on experience design. As we are a company that focuses mostly on the development of products, I think we can learn a lot here. We'll also look at the future of experience design. And we don't have a crystal ball. We do have Barry here. Barry is Director of Digital Experience and Innovation at Profound, one of our partners in the UK. And on the other hand, we have Borja, our Chief Experience Officer. He co-founded the company and he grew it into what it is today. So I'm very excited to get these people in the same virtual room and see what the future holds according to them. Thank you, Borja. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Catherine, for the intro. I don't think Barry is a crystal ball yet, but I think he's going to have some great ideas to share today with all of us. So first of all, thank you, Barry, for joining us at this partner story. I'm really excited around the talk today. Especially, I'm very passionate about experience design. That's actually my current role after being in many other positions within the company. And really looking forward for you sharing all your experience around design and how you're helping your customers to build beautiful brand stories and to design a healthier, a fairer digital landscape in a way, right? So just to before we kick off, I would like you perhaps to take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself so that you can share with us a bit of your background, what brought you to your current role, and what motivates you on a daily basis of the things you do.
Sure. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So my background started in a sort of commercial management roles. So I work with companies like Canon and Mars and Pirelli here in the UK. And I sort of stepped out of industry at the time when sort of the whole sort of digital environment was taking shape, and ran a consulting firm that was specializing in sort of digital business at the time. And then it went on to run another consulting operation for a company that had a supply chain logistics operation, but also a technology company. And we actually went to market selling online business models at the time. And really kind of during that period was focused very much on understanding requirements from a customer perspective and also from a business perspective and shaping solutions. And really that's where my initial interest in sort of design started to take shape. And I set up a business on my own going back about 14 years now, which was right at the very start of the kind of customer experience wave. So I guess I was there before it became a thing. But I got involved with experience design and really kind of looking at how we shape experiences for customers in all sorts of different industries. But digital has always been sort of a core focus of that. And then I joined Profound about 3-4 years ago now, and I'm on the board of Profound. I head up experience design and innovation, which encompasses everything to do with how we craft great experiences for customers and how we bring together things like product design and service design, UX design, and also kind of lots of different facets of research into helping us kind of understand and inform that design process and how we craft experiences and the solutions that ultimately get delivered.
Excellent. I think it's, this creative approach towards solving our customers' needs is what really, motivates us, right? As designers or thinkers. Great. Thank you for that, Barry. Yeah, we spoke yesterday about how the e-commerce landscape is changing these days, right? There's been, I think if we pay close attention to, to movements around in the industry, we see that there is, after the pandemic, which was, a massive acceleration towards, investment and serving those transactions and those deliveries. Now there is an adjustment towards cost, towards profitability. We see this in many areas. We see, for instance, this week, Shopify reduced their workforce by 10%. We've seen this fashion, for example, Inditex has said goodbye to free returns.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon Prime is going to increase in September by 38% their fees for delivery. So I think this shift towards profitability is making retailers be much more conscious about loyalty, customer retention, rather than just growing and pushing money out there in marketing for acquisition. And in a way, as a result of all this, I believe that, how do you make more loyal customers? How do you actually make sure that they love your brands? Is making brands rethink about how to connect with the customers, how to build more trust with them. And this is a major challenge. Is this something that resonates with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we sort of look at when we work with brands is we talk about how do they bring the brand to life? How do they actually want to craft an experience that actually represents the brand in the way that they want to see it and the way that they want to convey it to consumers? And one of the ways that we help them do that is to talk about certain design principles that should be the red threads of how we bring that brand to life through the experience. And one of those common design principles at a headline level that comes out all the time is this aspect of trust. And how do you actually engender trust with customers? And to your point, sort of looking at that e-commerce relationship rather than being a transactional relationship, where we're purely focused on kind of revenues or profitability, how do we actually start to think about loyalty and ultimately advocacy for customers, and how do we create that, and how do we get people coming back, and starting to think about the value that can be created between that relationship between the brand and the consumer is becoming an increasing focus, and particularly as the environment and the awareness of the consumers and their behaviors is starting to kind of shape a different type of behavior as well.
Totally. And this takes us as well as how do we make our site, our product discovery more relevant, right, to each and every one of our customers, so that they feel that they are understood, they feel that they are being heard by the brand. This is what we like, right? To be, that's why we build trust. So this takes us to how do we stay relevant to each customer. And as you know that you've been in the industry, as some of us for quite a few years, we go into this area of personalization, or basically how to make sure that each customer has a shopping experience that is well adapted to their needs. So as you know, we have a very sound, bold approach towards privacy. We don't believe in data being harvested for implicit profiling. We believe that customers should be aware of what is the data that they are sharing, how to actually share as well, rather than being tracked. We're moving into a sharing economy, right? In a sharing relationship. And this, so how do you guys actually translate this into experiences? Is privacy something that also it's part of your conversations with your customers? Tell me a bit more about this area.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, everything that we do, focuses on the customer as the starting point, and really looking at understanding the user. And everyone talks about personas, but I think personas are crafted and used in different ways. And for most organizations, they've been crafted for marketing purposes with the the purpose of actually sort of pushing out communications and targeting customers in certain ways. And the way that we use personas is to really kind of take a deeper look at the actual behavior and motivations and the needs and the outcomes that users are actually looking for when they come to a site. And certainly what we're seeing on that sort of privacy question is this constant sort of requirement to either accept cookies or not to be tracked, putting in emails for subscriptions. They all become barriers. So from a marketing perspective, even now a lot of organizations, they have to comply in certain areas for legislation and things like that. There are things that they have to do, but from a consumer point of view, they're just backing away from this situation. And we know that by geography, the appetite or the kind of the pushback from consumers is greater in some areas than others. But I think what there is an unquestionable sort of movement that we are seeing this kind of gain momentum now, and that sort of whole sort of trust and privacy conversation is very much part of one of those deep requirements for customers. If you're going to have trust in a brand, there is a behavioral aspect to the interaction that you have with that brand that sits very deeply for people. And so what we have to think about if we're trying to craft experiences which are relevant is actually how do we address and align to those motivating behaviors of these users to give them an experience that they feel comfortable with, but also feel engaged by. And I think when we talk about relevancy, and we've probably all seen all sorts of different sort of pitches and things like that around personalization and this, that, and the other. And, there's a lot of enabling components to that, but actually the way it gets implemented is often what lets it down. And it's that connection between making it relevant for the user, but actually not just what's being done, but the way it's being done. And how do we actually engage users as well? Making sure that we start to be a little bit creative about the way that we surface content and the way it's presented, not just what's presented, because actually that's what creates that differentiated experience that everyone's looking for.
Absolutely. I mean, Barry, I love your comments. I subscribe 100%. The challenge, privacy is not an end. It's just, you need to actually make sure that the experiences we design are private by design. They are actually, it's something that is built as a principle. And we need to make sure as well as product builders, as product designers, that the way we present data is not what data we present. The way we do it is what is going to build that trust relationship. So instead of saying this may be of your interest, say for a simple carousel of product recommendations, we have to go very deep and say this is here because you declare an interest in plastic-free products, for instance, or lactose-free, or whatever you've said you actually liked. So I think that it is very, very important to always surface the value of those explicit declarations of the customers towards the shopping experience, so that they actually understand the value of it as they do it.
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about customer experiences can either be designed intentionally or you just leave them to chance. And unless you actually sort of start to look at that experience in detail, there are lots of components that can actually act as a barrier for consumers. And being able to get consumers to engage and get that sort of trust that we mentioned earlier is very much about them seeing value in that interaction as well. And it may not be a sort of a conscious recognition as they go through the journey, but the ultimate outcome is one that actually delivers a good experience and one that becomes memorable and actually engenders that trust. So the way that we craft it becomes really, really important. And for me, I talk a lot about the fact that the role of experience design is actually kind of managing the tension that can exist sometimes between the sort of the technical solution and the experiences that we're actually delivering. And you see this with stakeholder groups in organizations where there are sort of conflicting agendas and things like that. And our role quite often is to find the right result for all parties and craft the sort of the best solution that we can. But I think what we're really seeing is that with consumers, they are prepared to actually offer information if they can see value in doing that. And that value may be about a better experience. It may be about understanding, the more relevant search results that they're seeing and why they're seeing them. But there is an understanding around the experience, and they're willing to invest in that. And it becomes a bit more of an equitable relationship between the consumer and the brand. And it's a slightly different way for brands to think as well, because from a consumer point of view, if I part with some information or I'm giving you something, I expect there to be a benefit attached to that, and I expect to be able to see it. So how do we craft that and make that sort of differentiation sort of come through with the way that we actually deliver the experience?
Exactly. So it's moving. Imagine a world where there is no consent forms, or there is no, cookie, pop-ups. And would you just say, hey, there is nothing here. We are not going to be tracking you. You are just an anonymous visitor unless you log in and you tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that this kind of brand customer relationship, I think this is something that many visionary brands are starting to ideate how to execute it, because then there is many technology barriers, and that's why it is not only a legal constraint, but it's also a technology constraint to get rid of your analytics platform or things that you actually need for your daily reporting. So
absolutely. And there was a survey I saw recently, and it was talking about differentiation and how experience is becoming the differentiator for brands, and actually is the focus and the priority now above product and price in the way that people are kind of thinking about things. And I think there are sort of three key ways that kind of change gets delivered. There's a sort of a business-centric model, which is around the sort of an operational aspects. We've got a sort of a platform-centric model around the technology, and then we've got an experience-centric model. And actually, Bruce Temkin sort of put something out a few weeks back about some research they've done in the US, which kind of said, well, organizations who are investing heavily in customer experience are actually seeing double revenues in 36 months. They're seeing tangible returns from doing it. But what happens quite often with that sort of tension between the technology and the experience is that it is difficult sometimes for organizations to ideate or think about the art of the possible. So what we have to do is kind of open and educate and test and research what actually makes a difference and what is possible, and actually what do we want to create. And that experience should be something that we're designing intentionally. It's not just something that is based around a set of features and functions that we make available. And it's starting to sort of think about that interaction in a much more value-centric way.
Absolutely, which is, it's not the feature or the functionality. It is about how it is perceived by customers, right? How they interact with it.
Absolutely.
So I like your comment you make about the tension between that you guys help to negotiate internally with your customers. And it made me reflect, because this is something that we see very often, that even within a brand, within one of our customers, there are teams that actually are pushing for greater monetization, saying, to include more ads, to be able to, allow brands or sellers within the marketplace to be more predominant in the experience. And then there's the customer-centric, the CX team, in a way, which they are trying to protect the customer from not being exposed to so many ads. So it's funny that you said this, that it's not even, it's internally within a single customer, they have this tension. And it's funny that you mentioned that you guys as a partner, someone that you're trying to facilitate growth and the design of cool, very nice experiences. Some of your challenges is actually negotiating the needs of these different teams within a company, right?
Yeah, I would say that is a common aspect of all of our engagements with clients, and facilitating those stakeholders and the different sort of agendas and objectives is really key. And the way that we do that is firstly by engaging everyone around a common reference model, so a view of actually what that experience looks like, and actually helping people actually kind of understand the impact of certain actions. And there are always going to be choices, but if we're going to make choices and decisions, let's ensure they're informed ones. And so what we encourage organizations to do is to make sure that we look at this with evidence, with insight, with research, and not be kind of led by opinions and who shouts loudest, but actually, if we're going to make some choices, let's make them informed ones.
Very good, very good. So I'm also very interested, because you guys are, very good in the exploration and discovery of these needs. And how do you actually help brands to actually be able to understand who they are and how they should be relating to their customers? Because this is very easily said, but when you go down to use cases, even brand marketeers within they have a lot of difficulty actually translating what their brand is and means into experiences. So how do you guys, you talked yesterday about a concept that I really am, I still, is this equitable relationships, right? And brand stories, or bring a brand to life, that you said yesterday, which I think is fascinating. So how do you actually, do you guys follow a process, or how do you actually manage this within this discovery process with your customers?
Yeah, so one of the first kind of aspects that we look at with organizations, bringing that brand to life is actually how do they do that? How do they want to sort of translate that? What does an experience look like that's a branded experience? And I mentioned earlier about this aspect of trust that comes through, but there will be other kind of aspects of that brand as well. And one of the things that we look at when we are looking at the experience is obviously what the touch points are for the customer across the whole life cycle, not just a part of a site, or but actually what's it like from the point of becoming aware of the brand in the first instance, through the whole sort of pathway to purchase, and the post-purchase, ultimately until they may leave the brand at some point. And we look at all of those aspects, and I talk about it a little bit like if we have a view and a reference model of those things, it's a bit like holding a mirror up to the brand to say, well, actually, these are all the interaction points that you have with your customers. And we have to think about how we not only kind of look at each of these points of interaction, but how do we actually kind of develop these in journeys which are meaningful for the user and reflective of the brand. And one of the things that reference model helps with, I liken this to, if you were to re-engineer a process, you wouldn't just pick part of the process and fix that and ignore the upstream and downstream dependencies of the change that's been made. So why would you do that with a customer journey? And if you sort of pick something, just about banners, for example, and you kind of put something out there, that may solve your problem, but it actually may create one somewhere else. So making sure that we have a joined up view across that is really, really important. And then we can start to think about how do we bring those red threads, how we bring that brand to life through those journeys, managing those tensions across the stakeholders, and get something that everyone feels kind of bought into, delivers on their agendas, but is also relevant for the user. And so there's multiple pieces that we're sort of trying to bring together.
Absolutely. This makes me think about, for instance, we are increasingly thinking about my account as a new touch point, which is very, very important, right? This is where the customer has a number of settings, not only their past purchases, but also their preferences, and increasingly now we are adding new ways to create, to personalize the shopping experience through saving filters or searches and being alerted of new things coming into the shop. So I think that when you start ideating these new touch points that then we will propagate to other areas, then all of a sudden, for example, sellers, they say like, well, up until today, I use my inventory based on keywords. But if I have customer preferences, now I can be more relevant because I don't need keywords to be able to display my ads. If I launch a new product, say, I know a new bomber jacket, right? And I know that, someone has declared an interest in this kind of clothes, you can directly send a notification as long as they consented for that. And so what I'm trying to say is that when you create this sphere of declared priorities, affinities, monetization folks, they all of a sudden they have a new way to approach the customer. So is this saying, hey, new opportunities actually are good, are valuable, not only for one team, but for many teams within a company, right? So
absolutely, and I think that sort of that relevancy, that personalization piece, it is something that continues beyond the transaction, and we can use that information to make those experiences again more relevant in terms of that post-transactional support as well, and all of that just kind of helps to kind of cement that that loyalty and that engagement with customers.
Okay, right. I'm just conscious of time. Perhaps I had one last question around, are there any remarkable trends or anything that you think is worth sharing? What are your thoughts about this? Or
I think there are obviously lots of things happening, and obviously evolving technologies present different opportunities and things like that as well. I mean, I think all of the things that we've sort of touched on here around sort of trust and with relevancy and privacy and things like that, I think offer huge opportunities, challenges, but huge opportunities that I think brands are really going to focus a lot more on. I think the way that other technology sort of comes into play, where we're sort of looking at that visual presentation of information, becomes a lot more. We're sort of seeing, sort of these sort of virtual sort of aspects about people able to kind of look at a furniture purchase and see what that looks like in their house. These types of things, and obviously kind of things around AI. There's all sorts of lots of opportunity out there. I think the technology offers. I think the one thing that I always come back to is the experience. And actually, unless we think about how that technology is going to be applied, it may never actually deliver the value that we want. We have to think about the experience, and therefore the experience should be making the informing the choices about the way that we enable things. Which is kind of really where we focus.
Which I was gonna share one of the questions we have here in the chat, which pretty much you have just answered that, but I'm gonna phrase it. So it is Zaira who is asking, how do you communicate to companies the value of design as a strategic asset from a UX point of view?
So it's a really interesting question. I think I mentioned, you can see from my grey hair, I've sort of been involved in sort of experience design since it sort of became a thing. And back then it was much more of a leap of faith, I think, for organizations.
And it was not called experience designers either, right?
No, absolutely. And the whole kind of customer experience agenda was, intrinsically everybody think this is the right thing to do, but there wasn't really evidence or proof to kind of back that up. And obviously now things have moved on. There is a lot more tangible evidence for the benefits of looking at experiences and what that actually delivers. One of the things that we do with any of our experience design work, we always have a thread through that which we call a value thread, and that actually kind of looks at the current situation, and obviously, what that actually, the KPIs that get measured, but not only just from a KPI perspective, looking at how we align the actual kind of customer experience measures with the actual commercial metrics and the results that get delivered. And if we understand that at the beginning, we then look at actually the improvements that are being made and the benefits that are being delivered through those improvements. And we encourage organizations to put the right measures in place to actually prove the fact that those benefits have been delivered, not just from a commercial perspective, but also from a customer perspective. How do we know that what we've implemented has done the things that we expected? And only if we put the right measurement in place can we actually kind of show that evidence.
Absolutely. Which takes us to the beginning, that experience design is also profitable. It's not a nice to have. It is actually, if you align it with your business needs and nurturing this trust with the customer towards sharing more of who they are and what they care for, this is a highly profitable investment for companies to have.
Absolutely. And when we're designing experiences, we're also thinking about the operational and technical enablers to actually deliver those experiences. So it doesn't just evolve around increases in loyalty or transactions or profit. It also becomes a way of identifying costs that can be removed from the business as well. So there are lots of different ways that we can create value, but also extract value as well.
We have another question here in LinkedIn from Jade. So he's asking, so would you say that the future of customer experience privacy will be polarized to either being anonymous or having an account? Customer, that is a customer that you either know or anonymous. So my take is that it depends. For example, in groceries, there is a highly a very big amount of logged in users. They're very much app-based. They are very recurrent on their purchases. The relationship is based on that recurrency, on building that relationship that is that you come back very often, and you have that element of tell us more of who you are, so that we can save your this will be first party data that you can manage, can be also zero party data, and it is a totally different way to approach personalization for an anonymous visitor. Our take is that when we talk about anonymous visits, we actually do only, or our idea is to do only in-memory contextualization. So basically, we capture what is happening in the moment, no previous visits. We don't believe in predictability based on past visits, because in a way your intent moves and changes. So it is very little you can learn from the past in terms of satisfying the intent of today. So yes, we do have a natural approach towards resolving intent in a different way for anonymous visitors versus logged in visitors, where we actually push them to build a relationship around sharing preferences. I don't know if Jade, I replied to or I answered any of your concerns, but that's our view, at least, of how we approach it. I don't know if you want to add something there, Barry.
No, I think it's going to be really dependent, isn't it, in terms of sort of the types of organizations and the nature of the business and the relationship with the user as well. I think they all sort of come into play, but I think what we're also seeing is that where there isn't that sort of regular behavior, the whole kind of issue of trust is still the same. So even if there's not a sort of a regular repeated sort of transaction with a brand, just going as a first-time visitor somewhere, those same issues around the trust, the barriers that are put in the way, are all exactly the same.
Right. I think we are over time. I don't want to take any more questions or any more of your time and your kindness to be part of this conversation. Barry, I really, really enjoyed it. So unless you have any final remarks, I'm going to pass on the word to Catherine so that she can wrap up the event and and share with us the last remarks.
Yeah, I think that last question was really good too. I think we could do a whole other LinkedIn Live just about that last one. But what I've learned is we see post-pandemic that brands have to start building brand loyalty, which is not only important for the customers, but it also creates a lot of value for other teams within a company. So it was very interesting to me to see that topic of experience, that design being pulled open, and see how it can be important or of importance to the whole company and beyond. So yeah, thanks for that, Barry, to share your insights. And thank you, Borja, as well, for being here today and leading this conversation. We'll definitely do a follow-up because there are so many interesting quotes, interesting talking points. But for now, thank you, and we'll be in touch. Just a general remark, in August, we won't be having a LinkedIn Live, but we will be back in September with more news. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day, guys.